Okay, I hope everyone had a terrific fest. I know we still got a few more people coming in. Yes! Everyone have a good time. Okay. Excellent. I'm still not noticing enough people dressed like myself. So there's still, we have the t-shirts. They are outside. Water bottles, mugs, sticker, get something. Don't leave empty-handed. This may be your only chance to get it live. And please do check out the table. We all good? Okay, so as promised, I really want to turn the floor over to you. I'd love to hear how the day went. I really enjoyed going to the sessions that I was in. I thought they were incredibly productive. We had so many good ideas put on the table. Since I want to go around the horn and try to get something from each session, we're going to try to limit it. I know, in fact, I was just in a session where we probably had 30 great ideas come from the floor. We're going to try to narrow it down to 1 or 2 if you're really, really nice and quick. So I'd like to go around to the co-leads or leads of each session from the morning and afternoon. I've got a mic. Dan Jones in the back, wave your hand. Kenny Whitebloom, K-Dog's got a mic. He's going to be handling the folks in the back. So what we'd like you to do, again, is to try to get an idea on the floor. You know, it doesn't have to be complete. It might be half-baked. It might be something that you were really thinking about or something that the DPLA community could execute on in the next year, and that would help our mission out. It doesn't necessarily have to be for the organization. I think, again, this is your project, and we want to hear how we can serve you better, how the community can be activated and energized on its own. So feel free to throw out any kind of idea, whether it's technical or social or anything else. We would love to hear from that. So if I could, I don't know if anyone would like to report from the board meeting. I don't know if John Palfrey has had to leave. I thought that was a good discussion there. I think one of the themes that came up from the board meeting was a concern for diversity in our collection, in our staff, and our community. I think a very important point that was put on the table that I think we are really going to work on. Okay, actually, let's have a hackathon report. SJ, maybe? Sure. Yes, I'm gonna Phil Donahue this. All right, here we go. Hopefully not true.
It's a real pleasure to be here. For the hackathon, there are about 10 requests for cool projects for people who might want to find something to work on that other people would use. One of those was picked up and implemented, and that was a search widget. And there's the beginning of a really beautiful one that a couple people worked on, and they're going to keep working on over the weekend. For anyone who's trying to implement a DPLA search on your site, you now have some neat options. And there were two other sweet projects. One was a catalog card plugin for Chrome that people could then clone for other browsers. For folks who wanted to quickly be able to pop up a sidebar to find related material in DPLA and pull out thumbnails from all the records. And there was work on correcting broken geodata, because more than one person had felt the pain. And so there's a tool that will randomly cycle through geopoints and help people correct them. And all of these things are frameworks that are now on GitHub for people who want to start adding new features and new algorithms. But I think the best part of the event was we also named another 5 or 6 interesting projects to work on that somebody could spec out. So there are beautiful diagrams. There are stick figure drawings of all the progress that we made on the hackpad. So please take a look if you or any developers who work with you are interested. Great. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, SJ, for that. I think the other great app ideas came up in other sessions, the one that Jamie and I were just in. I think it'd be a great idea, and I think Amy Rudersdorf, Assistant Director of Content Wave, had a whole bunch of other ideas too for widgets. I think getting up a wiki page or some kind of page where, as we have Hackfest and other events, people could pull those off. It was a great idea for a game that came out of the last session that I tweeted. I think some people in San Francisco are already working on it. So anything that we can do on that front would be terrific. And again, just as a reminder, we've got these collaborative notes up on the agenda page. I think they're linked to from the live stream page. I'm getting a yes from Kenny. So there was a great HackPad page for DPLA with some of those additional ideas for apps that SJ mentioned. Thank you, SJ, and the hackers. Maybe they can raise their hand. Who else participated in the Hackfest? Great, thanks very much. And a particular shout out to Jeff Lick, wave your hand, who is our tech lead up there, making the API available and hanging out with the hackers. Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the session on using digital tools to extend the DPLA and connect with local libraries. John was there, I know. Two Johns. John, okay. Thanks. John Sarnowski.
Well, there was a general consensus that, first of all, for small organizations, it'd be a good idea to have some kind of metadata tools so that there could be some standardized metadata applied to new digital objects being created. Of course, I'm from the Rescarta Foundation, and we provided some software that did exactly that. So in 20 minutes, we went from raw files to a metadata fulfilled with Library of Congress, built a collection, hosted a website, put up an OAI site, and had it harvested. So it can be done. It can be done in 20 minutes. And then, John, you want to take over your side?
Yes, John's demo was amazing. Not only did he show digitized content, he was correcting transcriptions, loading it into the metadata along with all the descriptive metadata, putting up an OAI site, and that was all, as you say, in under half an hour. And one of the things that came out of that is that we're serving it up via OAI. It would be great to have a lot of the people there felt it would be good to know how they could connect to the DPLA so that if they put up one of these things, be sure that it could be included in DPLA content, whether it's through DPLA Central or via a state hub, which it sounds like there's still demand for more of those is beyond the ones we've got. It's great that we have the number we do, but there's hope for more of those. I was also demonstrating forwarding from digital collections. I was looking specifically at was a digital site I run, online books, and also from Wikipedia back to local library collections, whether they're digital or local. And there's interest in not only doing that from there, but also potentially doing that from DPLA as well. So you could link. You could have basically a whole cycle going from your local library's digital content, go into DPLA, and then go from DPLA back into the local libraries.
Okay, thank you to Johns. Let's go to the Future Libraries think tank. Sue, are you still here? Let's see. This looks like a freewheeling and idea-filled session.
We had a very lively session with about 50 people there. We divided into subgroups and spent a lot of time talking about what could be done in libraries immediately and then more long-term. A word was coined that we may give a definition to later on. You may hear about it again, but it is platformize. So our goal is to platformize different libraries on the DPLA model, and when we get some more information, we will let the group know about that. We also talked about doing publisher in residence, so doing a lot of maker spaces and doing espresso machines where people can mash up materials and really take tools, make their own productions within the library setting. So there will be more coming out. We put a lot of our ideas on the Google Doc.
Great, thanks so much, Sue. I encourage, again, everyone to check out that Google Doc in particular. It's got some additional terrific ideas. Okay, the data mining session. So, David, anyone from New Lab?
Both
yeah.
the leaders of the data mining session had to leave. So John Unsworth and Dave Lazar can't speak for themselves. So look out. Yeah. Well, I was at the data mining session. So were other people. So I think John talked a lot about the HathiTrust Research Centers model. As a potential way forward for non-consumptive research, and as well as tossing out some problems that needed to be solved. David Lazar talked about computational social science. I think, just to keep it brief, one of the recommendations that could be useful coming out of that is to think about citizen science and the production of knowledge that doesn't get locked inside, doesn't let the DPLA just become another silo of information about users that users can't themselves get to. And so what are ways where, keeping anonymity in mind, we can also make that data, given back to the public.
Okay, thank you very much. Zigzagging in another direction, elephant in the room, copyright and new ways forward. Dave Hansen.
So our group talked through the whole number of copyright cases that are affecting digital libraries today. Google Books, HathiTrust, Georgia State decision. And one of the biggest takeaways was that there's just a whole lot out there, and it's a difficult issue, and there's not a lot of guidance. And so one takeaway was that the DPLA could provide real leadership by creating, but more importantly, curating resources that others make that are readable and trusted on issues like litigation and things that are happening in Congress right now, best practices for dealing with copyright and other legal issues. And also some sort of maybe toolkit or advocacy set of materials that libraries can look to say these are the things that are important to us in the legal realm right now, and this is how we think they should be dealt with.
Thanks, Dave. That's terrific. Okay, let's see. Innovative digital exhibits and collection building. Is Emily still here? Let's see. Peter, Leslie? Is anyone in that session who would like to report? Yes, thank you.
I'm Leslie Morris. I guess if I'd known I was going to report, I would have taken notes. I didn't. So we started by describing a project, the Emily Dickinson Archive, that just launched this week. Some of the internal challenges to getting that up, some of the external collaborations we've been doing. And then we had, I thought, a really great discussion about the importance of rich metadata as being something that even if you can't immediately digitize something and put it up somewhere, as long as you have really rich metadata locally, you still have that option when that becomes a possibility. We also talked about consortia and smaller places banding together in different ways. And I'm sorry that's kind of brief, but I should have taken notes.
Great summary. Okay, put over to the classroom. DPLA in the classroom. Lindsay, great.
Hi, in our session we had about 20 people from various kinds of institutions. We had K-12 and higher ed, people also from the community who are interested in connecting with K-12 or higher education. So we broke into two subgroups for those discussions, K-12 and people working in higher ed. And a lot of the discussion centered on how do we bring people on board on both ends, in higher ed and K-12. What support do educators need, whether they're teachers, whether they're faculty members teaching courses or doing research? What support do librarians need to bring to help anyone who's trying to bring DPLA into the classroom? So librarians, library specialists, public librarians. What continuing development do people need? What teacher training is needed? What administrative support is needed? And kind of one big idea that came when the two groups came back together is that we're all working to further education, critical thinking, understanding history, heritage, and so not thinking of K through 12 and higher ed as separate, but those two things working together as we scaffold our student learning outcomes up through all of education. And a few action items that people suggested. I have my big piece of paper here that we used at the end. A couple action items: an education outreach plan, a repository of ideas that could be put online that people could have access to, because we have we're a lot at the idea stage right now, and we need to bring ideas into action, but we need to hear from each other ideas. And also, in particular, in packaging content together, especially through K12, we can learn through the Library of Congress model and what they've done online to package materials together and bring content together.
Thank you very much. Okay, and the final session in the morning was the Hub's How-To, and my colleagues Emily and Amy, maybe if Kenny, you could get the mic over there, would love to hear a report back from them.
So we had an excellent session. A lot of current hubs came that were able to answer some questions, and then people who were interested in contributing content either as a content hub or as a service hub, and we explained more in detail what it meant to contribute content to the DPLA. Some of the, I think, a couple of really good ideas that came out of that session and things that we have been tossing around, but include to have a and either by institution type hub or by a topic hub instead of geographic. So service hubs that are not necessarily geographic based, but could be based on other reasons to work together, to collaborate. So that's something that people wanted to see. There were a lot of people in the room who were at institutions that didn't meet the content threshold of 250,000 items to share with DPLA directly, but they wanted to be involved and didn't have a service hub in their state. So B was to build more state hubs, and yay, we want to do that.
Okay, yes, a very critical part of where we'll be going next. Okay, let's move to the afternoon sessions, the Focus on Community session.
Well, we had a large and lively discussion. Actually, one of the most interesting remarks came in a tweet, and it was, "This is our to-do list," which I think coincides with the general feeling that the DPLA belongs to everyone. Everyone's participating. Anyhow, our group came up with some, I think, quite compelling ideas and criticisms even. One theme was hyper-locality. So the idea was to get behind this, beyond the Scanabago. We love the Scanabago metaphor, but the idea is if you really want to mobilize community support, you could go much further than just sending out one pioneer in a Scanabago. You should should send out a whole classroom, for example, as is being done with the History Harvest. You could use community centers, historical societies, churches. You should contact even refugee groups, people that are beyond the reach of the DPLA so far. Go to community college librarians in particular. They don't need to be trained, they need to be mobilized and incorporated. The second theme was diversity. Part of the problem, our session was about community. What is a community? Well, we're all a DPLA community, but then there are more specific notions of community. One was the Latino Digital Archive Group, which began the discussion and feels that it needs to be incorporated more in the general offerings of the DPLA. There is some sense that there's not enough geographical diversity, that the Middle West somehow has dropped out of everyone's perception, and more diversity within the DPLA from the board on down. I thought there was some confusion between service hubs and content hubs, and again, a sense of dissatisfaction with the threshold of 250,000 objects to qualify to be a threshold, to be an actual content hub. So the idea was to make local communities feel as though they are full partners and not to have any sense of first-class, second-class citizens.
Great. Thanks very much for that report, Bob. Okay, the local unconference. Speaking of local, more on hyper-local, DPLA local.
We also talked a lot. We had a diverse group. It was awesome. And we also talked a lot about a few things that have been mentioned in other ways, which is the Scanabago maybe didn't go far. It's a great thing, but it doesn't solve the whole problem. And one of the big learnings also was that while the DPLA local plan we have is an excellent plan, and people are very, very excited about it. With it needs to come training and support, both on either hosting or providing hosting, technical support, a communications plan. So if you do this at a local level, how do you make sure people know you have it? Some of the other learnings we had were also things that we need to share out our uses and talk with one another about how we're leveraging it. And I know that was mentioned in the education realm. So there's definitely some synergies I'm hearing. And one of the big things is we need to talk about uses that make this fun. We need to make DPLA's content not just like, oh, here's some content, and it's really cool, and you can do research with it, but how can we make it fun as well? Because that will capture a lot more audience and imagination. So thanks.
Great. Jamie, if you could just pass the mic up 2 rows to Jean, who will grab it from you. Thanks, Jean. And Jean is covering the applications for advanced research.
Yeah, so we had a great talk with my co-leaders, Jim, David, and Kathy, who's somewhere. Had to leave. Anyway, so we had a great sort of wide-ranging conversation. There are wonderful notes in the Google Doc. But one of the main things to come out was that lots of scholars, lots of classroom projects, lots of enthusiasts know a lot of things about the objects that are in the DPLA that may be outside, that may be very difficult to get into a traditional library catalog through all of the checks that go into putting data into a standard library catalog. But with the DPLA aggregating sources from so many places, it would be wonderful if there was a way to do community-enriched, scholar-enriched metadata in the DPLA, including, if people are interested, links to open data. There was, I think, a great conversation about what it would take for the DPLA to do that itself, but the option that if people with guidelines for how to link your records to other people's URIs, and to do that so that it could be harvested, but mostly how to take all of the information about these objects that exists in the scholarly research community and really pull that into the DPLA so that we can see it brought back out. And also, I thought a really good suggestion in terms of the kinds of data and types of things the DPLA can hold that other places may not be able to, if the DPLA was ever interested in getting involved in helping humanities scholars with a hosting for the data that comes out of their research for data management plans. If people are working on projects where the data could find a home in the DPLA was willing to create language and processes that would allow them to put it into NEH grants and et cetera, so that they could say, this is the information we're going to be enriching, and it can find a home in the DPLA where it will be safe.
Great. Rachel Frick on the new collections.
Not only do we have good ideas, but back to DPLA is ours, we actually made assignments for our good ideas for follow-up. So we kicked the session off with Peter Kaufman talking about multimedia and how, children in K-12 learn with multimedia materials, and not that many in the DPLA. So how do we start a collection development strategy to start recruiting more multimedia materials? And also a really great idea, I think going back to what Emily was saying about aggregating on content types, we thought that was a really awesome idea. Maybe we can start a multimedia moving image hub, since that seems to be a low threshold item. Not a lot of people have rich, dense collections of multimedia, and plus it has a nice way to do drivers. I think Paul Keller mentioned how can we unify user experience across different multimedia types. Maybe that's some sort of way that we can drive best practices and recommendations about tools and viewing and interacting with multimedia as well. The other part of that, we were joking about maybe we should have some sort of Ken Burns tool for our still images to make them look like they're multimedia. But, so that would be on the list of maybe things for the hack folks to make our still stuff move. I don't know. There was a really great archive group that makes animated GIFs out of their images, so why not, right? And we asked that Peter and Karen Cariani from WGBH to kind of draft a little, what we called a business case scenario for that type of priority in addressing the DPLA in large, about why multimedia is a priority and all the different things that would spin off of that, kind of like a business plan, marketing plan for that. The other thing that I thought was really cool that came out of it, we talked about data analysis about collections now that we have 5 million records. can we look at the use logs? Can we look
Yeah.
at how people are interacting with the collections? Can we see what's in the collection to identify strengths, but also, I don't want to say weaknesses, but gaps? And then maybe do some sort of way to a gamification for collection recruitment and enrichment, and identify certain historical timelines. We were talking about civil rights movement, and use that a way to recruit content, get people excited, and use content in the classroom. And actually, Susan Chun, we actually recruited her to help develop a research plan about looking at the collection data and actually trying to recruit people from our research community. But also, Jill Vermillion said, hey, there was I think K through 12, I think 12th grade has to use statistics and research methods. Maybe we can engage them with DPLA by actually engaging with our data. And the third thing about collection development strategy, how can we tie it to larger national strategic, thoughts? And one of the things was around agriculture. You think agriculture, pictures of farms, et cetera, and so forth. But we thought, hey, we can tie this to STEM education and actually nutrition in children. So there's ways that you can take maybe surface topical areas and really stretch them to a lot of different communities and different conversations. So there we go.
Great. All right. Thanks very much. Okay, thanks, Rachel. We wanted to go to the alternative licensing group, and I thought I saw David. Yes, there we go. David O'Brien.
Thanks, Dan. We'll do a little bit of tag teaming, actually. So just to give you a sense of what we talked about, there's a lot of very difficult problems and challenges right now, I think, that libraries are experiencing in terms of how they get access to ebooks and how they make ebooks available to their patrons. There's definitely not any consensus, though, on what the right approach might be for solving these problems. We talked a lot about the effects of licensing, and there was some general agreement that it's a problematic environment. We talked a bit about platforms and various technical solutions that will need to be explored. There was also a general agreement, I think, that licensing goes hand in hand with the technical problem, too, that there's no one silver bullet solution to the problem. So with that, hopefully, Greg can help us discuss some of the action items.
Thanks. Well, we talked about a whole number of action items, and we kind of sifted them into four things that DPLA could do, and we, as DPLA, can do. One is to play an important advocacy role to contribute to the policy debate about licensing issues related to ebooks, to help identify a method to handle content rights. For instance, is there a way that we can get a handle on a copyright-like expiration for licenses, so things that are licensed could eventually get into the public domain? Another suggestion was that perhaps the hubs could work to host the content of local authors and local publishers. And lastly, we really need a forum for collaboration and sharing and discussing these issues and projects, and perhaps DPLA can help facilitate that.
Okay, creative ways to build and extend metadata. Jeff, let's see. Amy, you want to take that, or Vasilis?
I'm going to keep it short and sweet.
Okay, great.
Okay, so basically the discussions really circled around how data is being used in games, gamification, and tasks to improve the metadata we're using. We had some demos from Mint 2, of Mint 2, and of metadata games. I can't talk anymore. It's been a long day. Metadatagames.com. And I also want to credit Jason Kuchma. He's the tweeter. It was his tweet about DPLA is ours and the tasks are ours. And I think, it's not mine, it's all y'all's. We got the metadata in. Now you guys can build the apps. That's all I have.
Thanks, Amy. You're getting loopy like me at this point. So, all right. Well, International Alliances. Boy, I want to thank Jill and Ahiri for coming all this way to join us for DPLAfest. Just a quick applause while I make my way out to Jill.
We were also tagging. So I'm going to start with Ahiri doing the introduction to what we were doing.
The workshop was on international alliances. The question that we put forward, was how the DPLA can build connections and reach users at the global scale. And the way that we proceeded was to frame 3 questions looking at what we have now, who we want to reach by 2020, and how we're going to get there. So I'll start by what we have now. We identified Europeana, which is, of course, the
Yeah, Europeana, all right.
Sure. The first connection, the big connection with DPLA. Other platforms we thought of was New Zealand digital platform, IFLA, Finland, Digital Library of Caribbean. No, I'm getting into the ones that we want to reach now. Okay. Technical partnerships like Mint, and then we went into future partnerships. Wikipedia would be a nice future partnership to have, Google as well. And outreach to social media like History Pin, Pinterest, conferences, museums on the webs, Museum Computer Network, Art Libraries Group, international schools, DILOS, EIFLnet. I think I covered all. Should I go on with who? I'll give it a go.
So we have lots of lists, basically, of who we want to reach. So no real surprises in who we should be reaching internationally by 2020. Education, educators, teachers, journalists, Wikipedia editors, researchers, family historians, genealogists, travellers, and also the tech innovators. These are all people that you are already trying to reach through the DPLA in the States. How should we go about getting to these international audiences? Via the API. Stupid. So you're already doing it fundamentally, and using the intermediaries, but you need to use the international ones. These are things like Historiana, European SchoolNet, International School Libraries Association, but go on using the ones that you're using, such as Google, Wikipedia, because they do the translations for you. They enable you to access the international audiences in the languages that you're trying to reach them in. That we should be working on participation to drive usage, so the kind of local roadshows that you've got already, but maybe doing some of those more internationally. Creation of apps, the widgets that you've already created via EBSCO and the DPLA, well, can we do that with Wikipedia? There were some ideas about content being able to drive audiences that we should target, so lots of Korean stuff would appeal to Korean audiences, target the Koreans, very obvious. There are some conditions. Interoperability, we really do need to go on making things work so that others can use the material. We need to worry about the local value propositions, what actually works in different markets. We need to try and make as much as possible public domain, and obviously we have to worry about language. So the conclusion, or the action item, things I understood that we have to have action items, are that the mechanisms are in place, the Wikipedias, the Googles, you've got the API, but you need to target specific audiences via intermediaries in the same way that you already do, but in the equivalent places internationally. Thank you.
That's great, Sandra. Thanks so much. Okay. Our final session, actually, maybe I could... Oh, okay, we're going to have a handoff to Jeff. Okay, for maximizing open access.
Thank you. So there were really 3 takeaways from our session, and the first one was that we really need some way to articulate the not return on investment, but the term that got used was return on openness. What is the advantage to providing content open access? To try to sell those groups who might balk at the notion of opening up their content, either for financial, economic reasons or out of fear of colonization. The second takeaway was the need to develop community standards around providing open content. What is the right Creative Commons license for under certain conditions, right? Who gets to make the decision in an institution about what the right Creative Commons license is? And the third, and this is taking off very directly on the elephant in the room session, the desire to have some kind of toolkit or guidelines for navigating the very complex legal space of copyright and open access rights. And actually, there was a fourth thing, which was if you've seen the short video on linked open data that Europeana produced, which is excellent, there was somebody said that there's a need for a similar short video to explain open access. So if you're a filmmaker or know any filmmakers, have them get on that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. You can actually keep that mic and just flip it off, and I'll talk from this one. Well, thank you all very much. Yes, you can take that home with you. That's a souvenir, DPLA souvenir. At your donation level, we'll let you go with that. So I have just a bunch of thank yous to wrap things up and inspire us to leave and do even more in the coming months and years. First of all, I just want to thank our hosts, Northeastern University's College of Social Science and Humanities and the Simmons Graduate Graduate School of Library and Information Science. Thanks so much to them for hosting this. Really so greatly appreciated. We had to reschedule this April Gala event, and we wanted to then turn it into something bigger, and they were so gracious to provide this space. I also want to thank all the volunteers at Northeastern and Simmons. Another round of applause for them. All the student workers, guy behind the camera, thank you. All the tech staff who helped us out. I also want to just thank all the volunteers, the folks who just spoke and their colleagues who volunteered and led the workshops, who did a really great job. So thanks to all those folks as well. And the note takers. We couldn't exist without the note takers. And I also want to thank, really a sincere thank to the Berkman Center for Internet and Society and the staff there for really doing so much organizational work, obviously in the planning stage, but also to actually organize this event. There were a lot of people at Berkman who made this happen, so thank you very much to Berkman. Okay, I want to just give a shout out and thanks to my great colleagues, my dream team colleagues, Emily Gore, Amy Rudersdorf, Frankie Abbott, and Kenny Whitebloom, hand in the back. And if we could give a standing ovation to Kenny, because Kenny was the one person who really was most responsible for putting this all together. Thank you, Kenny. We are shipping Kenny off to Spain next week, so thank you, Kenny. Finally, just a big thanks to you. You were the ones who made this happen, and I really appreciate all of your time and effort and ideas and contributions. I hope you will stay in touch. I hope some of you have already signed up to be community reps. I want to thank all the people who've already donated, and I encourage you to do more of that and get some nice t-shirts on the way out. I really think you were the ones who made this a tremendous success. I feel like I've gotten a tremendous amount of ideas. I'm going to have a restful weekend and then sit down with these Google Docs and what you just said and really start planning out for the future. But I'm going to need your help. All of us at DPLA HQ are going to need your help, so we're going to call on you in the future. This is the first annual DPLA event and DPLAfest event. We had always planned to have this in the spring. We know that October is incredibly busy for a lot of people, and we'd like to remove this back to the spring. But it is really daunting to think about scheduling one of these for, say, April 2014. So I think we are likely at this point to skip a year, even though that's very odd for an annual event. But we will probably have the next one in spring 2015. A couple of people actually have come up to me during the meeting and said that they might be interested in hosting in different places. If you are potentially interested, and we'd love to move this around the country, to engage other audiences, to engage the public. If you're interested in that at all, run an institution that might be a host or several institutions that could work together, please let me know. Just drop me a line, dan@dp.la, and we'll talk about that. We have 18 months, so there's plenty of time. Okay. So we're also going to ask for your feedback and suggestions. I think Kenny's going to send out a little note that'll have a questionnaire on it. Things we could do better for the next time around. Don't be shy about letting us know if there's anything that we can do. So thank you again. As long as narcolepsy doesn't kick in, I'm going to hang out for a while outside and hopefully not keel over. But if anyone hasn't had a chance to come up and talk to me or say anything that you'd like to say, we will hang out. I also encourage further mirth by going over to pubs and restaurants along Huntington Avenue. There is a wide array. What's the best pub to go to?
Five Horses is good.
Okay, Five Horses is the recommended place. So, what's that? Okay. Squealing Pig. Squealing Pig. We have a vote from Boston Public Library for Squealing Pig. This sounds all great. I will be at both of these places momentarily, but again, happy to, if someone hasn't had a chance to say hi, happy to do so. Pick up stuff on your way out, and thanks again.